Hey, what's going on, everybody? Alex with you here again. Seems like it's been forever since I've uploaded my last video, and then just today I checked and it was only 5 days ago, so I guess it wasn't forever, but it really did seem that way. So this particular video will be marking the 20th video that I'm going to be uploading on this channel, which is woohoo, yay! Today I wanted to do another chess set. This one is going to be the House of Staunton Queen's Gambit inspired chess set. And I wanted to make sure that I keep it in the box so that we can kind of unbox it together and take a look. So, as usual, House of Staunton does a pretty good job at, boxing everything pretty nicely. Here we see the regular, usual styrofoam. This particular variation of this set is in the golden rosewood and natural boxwood. There was another option of getting this set in ebonized boxwood and natural boxwood, but I wanted to get the golden rosewood just because I felt like it looked more like wood. And I really was kind of debating whether or not to get one versus the other because the price difference was only about $10. And although I thought that the black on light pieces would look nice, I ended up just getting this one. This time around, the box did say golden rosewood, not acacia wood. So let's go ahead and open these up and take a look. Okay. So here's the light pieces. And another little styrofoam sheet to protect the pieces on the inside. And here we have the dark pieces. So this particular set, as of now, sells on House of Staunton for $189 for the golden rosewood, or $199 for the ebonized boxwood variation. Just like a couple of months ago, the same set, before it was completely sold out, was selling for like $99 or somewhere in that range for the same type of set. And for like $200, you could get a set and the pieces and the board, and I think even possibly a box. But then it was sold out for a while, and when it got back in stock, they boosted the price quite up, quite a lot. The quality of the set didn't improve, but I guess the demand was so high that they decided that they were gonna make this particular set more expensive. Okay, in comparison, right here we see the Library Grandmaster set, the video to which you can find on my page. So it's actually the very first video that I did. And on this side, you'll see the 1852 Paulsen set. So we're going to compare these two sets to the Queen's Gambit inspired chess set in order to see like where it lies as far as the shape and the size of the pieces and, how it compares to these. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look. Alrighty, here are the kings. The light and the dark king here. And as far as their color, they very much so look similar to the light and the dark king of the Library Grandmaster chess set. Okay. As far as the diameter, it's going to be a little bit different. The diameter of the Queen's Gambit inspired chess set of the base is a little bit bigger. And then for comparison, we have the Paulsen, and the Paulsen's going to be that much bigger and that much wider. Let's go ahead and take a quick look. We have the king from the Paulsen set right here, and then we have the king to the Library Grandmaster chess set right here next to it. And then we have the slightly bigger Queen's Gambit inspired chess set right over here. Hopefully everything stays in focus. Because this top portion of the king is so plain and sort of unrefined, this particular chess set I would probably feel a lot more confident in just putting in the chess bag and taking this particular set to tournaments, because I would feel that with the tops being this way, they would be less likely to break off if they were just jumbled together in one big bag. So as I've shown you guys before, the king for the Paulsen is 124 grams. The king for the Library Grandmaster is at 39 grams. And then the king for the Queen's Gambit inspired chess set is at 62 grams for the dark, and then 62 grams for the light as well. So somewhere in between. As usual, this set will come with 4 queens, so it's pretty standard among tournament chess sets. Queens are a little bit taller than your Library Grandmaster chess set, and then the queen for the Paulsen set is going to be that much bigger. As far as the weight, the queen of the Paulsen set is at 86. The Library Grandmaster is at 31. And then the Queen's Gambit Inspired is at 53. So, once again, a little bit in between. The light one is at 47. Let me double check that. 53 for the dark and 47. So, pretty substantial difference between the light and the dark queen as far as the weight. Okay. Size comparison, comparing that to the queen for the Library Grandmaster, definitely a lot smaller, and then the queen for the Queen's Gambit Inspired chess set. Here's the size comparison of the bases. You know, like not a whole lot of refinement. You see, as you could see, not a lot of extra. They're not super thin like my Cambridge Springs chess set. The middle portions were like super thin, but this is just a very normal. The Library Grandmaster Bishop is a lot smaller, and then the Paulsen's Bishop is actually almost the same height. So these pieces are going to be pretty close to the height of the Paulsen. So Paulsen is 79 grams. Then the Library Grandmaster is 24 grams for the pawn. And then dark queen's at 39. And the light one is at 34. So once again, dark pieces weigh in a little bit more. So that's one of the things that you guys might want to consider. If this golden rosewood, it just weighs more naturally for the same shape. If you end up getting the ebonized boxwood, it's likely that the ebonized boxwood might weigh more like the light pieces and won't be as heavy. So the dark pieces are just a smidgen heavier, okay? You guys can see, here's the bishop to the Paulsen series. Here's the bishop to the Library Grandmaster. And then this is the bishop to the Queen's Gambit Inspired chess set. So height-wise, we're looking just a little bit taller than this one. But if you look, you could tell that this, even though it's more refined, this particular thing kind of worries me, because I feel like if this particular bishop were to drop, then this little tiny ball over here, because it's like halfway only, it would be more likely to break off. This little tiny ball on top would probably be more likely to break off too, but the bishop here is not very heavy, so I feel like overall, but this one here, it kind of looks like a little pancake, so I feel like it would be less likely to break off. There's not a whole lot of detail to that cut portion in the very top, and one of the things at the very top of these sets is got a very flattened ball. Okay. So the rooks here, the light and the dark, are going to be somewhat similar to the rook of the Library Grandmaster once again. On the Library Grandmaster, you see a lot more cuts on the top, whereas on the Queen's Gambit, you only see 4 cuts on the top here. And then the Paulsen is going to be bigger, okay? Paulsen is going to weigh in at 83 grams. Library Grandmaster weighs in at 24 grams. And then the dark one, Queen's Gambit's at 31. And the light one is at 28, okay? So 28, 31. Okay, so here's the rooks. We have the Paulsen rook. with the top having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cuts total. And then 6 cuts on the Library Grandmaster on top. Definitely a lot smaller in size. And then the slightly bigger Queen's Gambit with only 4 cuts on top. Shape-wise, very similar to the Library Grandmaster. I'm just going to show you guys the dark rook. If you look up closely, I'm not sure if it'll be evident, but right in between the cuts, you'll see that there's still a little bit of like wood left. Actually, I had the same issue with the Library Grandmaster set, but over time, those little extra specks in between the cuts, they sort of disappeared on their own. So it's not really a problem. This is what the rook looks like. Golden rosewood color. I feel like overall very aesthetic. Pawns for this Queen's Gambit inspired chess set are actually very, from what it looks like, they're pretty top heavy, because the very top portion's pretty big overall. In fact, the size of the ball is bigger than the size of the Paulsen. So this particular ball is pretty large. Here we're comparing the height too. They're pretty tall compared to the Library Grandmaster chess set, and they're very much so closer in size to the Paulsen set. Okay, the Paulsen pawn weighs in at 35 grams. The Library Grandmaster is at 9 grams, and then the dark one is at 20 grams. And the light one is at 20. So they're about equal as far as the weight of the pawns. Okay. Here's the Paulsen pawn. Here's the pawn to the Library Grandmaster, and then here's the pawn to the Queen's Gambit. So the Queen's Gambit pawn has the ball that's actually, let's take a look like this closer. The ball itself is a little bit broader than even the Paulsen one, which makes it easier to grab it. This is lighter than this pawn, so when you grab it, it's not like it feels light, completely weightless, but it's lighter, and this one's got a little more resistance when you grab it. This one, when you grab it and you go. This one, unfortunately, is so light, and the ball is so small that you're kind of having a little bit of a trouble of grabbing it, especially if you're playing a fast game, you know. Whereas this one is just got a much better feel overall. So you're kind of getting, you know, a good set overall, a set that would fit on a lot of boards, and also a set that's very easy to play, very ergonomic overall. Here are the pawns. Actually, I really kind of like the pawns. I like the fact that the top portion is a little bit bigger than the rest of the pawn. I mean, because they're easier to grab overall. They're not super large pawns. They're not super heavy pawns. But that top ball just makes it that much easier to just pick up and go. And lastly, we want to go ahead and take a look at the knights, because that's what kind of makes this particular set different from many of the other sets that I've reviewed. Generally, when it comes to the knights for all the different chess sets that I've reviewed, for the most part, when we see a knight, we kind of gauge the quality of the set based on how the knight looks. So, you know, we take a look at the Library Grandmaster chess set, and we see the knight has very crude features. It looks like it's been chiseled very quickly, and you know, the look of the knight is basically more or less kind of an indication of what the quality of the chess set is. You know, when you compare this knight to the Paulsen knight, we obviously see that the Paulsen knight has a lot more details, that it's bigger, has a lot more refinement to it. So generally, when we look at sets, we kind of say, well, yeah, this is probably going to belong to a much more expensive chess set than this one. When it comes to the Queen's Gambit inspired chess set, that's when things are kind of a little bit different, because the knights, in fact, look very, very crude. I mean, when you look at these knights, you're thinking, wow, like this is probably a $3 chess set. You know, I just feel like the knights here are very, very blunt. There's almost no detail on them whatsoever. The mouth is pretty much non-existent, and it really does look like they took the knight, they cut it, and then they took some kind of knife and just cut the hairs out, and that's about it. It looks like it has two little ears, a nose, and just these eyes even look like they've been just stamped out. Okay, so when you compare the knights, you see that these knights gonna look a little bit bigger than the Library Grandmaster, and you know they are gonna be smaller in size than the Paulsen one. Okay, as far as the weight of the knights, the Paulsen series weighs in. It's a pretty heavy knight, at 78 grams. The Library Grandmaster super light one, 22, and then the dark is at 43, and the light one is at 40. Okay? Having weighted them, we kind of get an idea that this particular set lies somewhere in between the Library Grandmaster and the Paulsen. Now, if that was it, I would probably say, yeah, this chess set's just basically a little bit overpriced, especially considering how the knights look. But here's the thing about it. You know, when they're shooting these type of like Queen's Gambit and any of the other chess films, they're gonna think carefully, like, hey, which chess set are we going to film, so that later on that particular chess set is gonna end up being sold. It's probably gonna be a chess set that's easier to make in large quantities, you know, that doesn't take a lot of refinement, and that's gonna be fairly easy to play, and it's not gonna cost an arm and a leg. So with that being said, I feel like this particular chess set, even though there were many different chess sets in the series from what I was able to see, this one is one that they chose, and I've seen this one played in the series. It's not the best one, but it is one of them. With that being said, yes, there's going to be quite a lot of demand. I mean, think about it. Like you have something as successful as the Queen's Gambit series. Clearly, it's going to spur a lot more, a lot more enthusiasm in chess. And what a better way to go ahead and get something like this done than to produce a chess set right off the movie. Okay, you might think, well, I feel like it's an overpriced set, and partially I can agree with you. It might feel like it's an overpriced set, but hear me out on this. This particular set, look at the knight, and you say, wow, this knight isn't very, very detailed. Look at the knight for the Paulsen. Compare that to the knight from the Modena chess set, and then tell me which one you would rather have. And if you answered, you'd say, I'd rather have one like this or one like this, then I would probably say, well, it actually depends. I mean, what type of games are you playing? Because I've had a lot of people comment to me and say that, certain chess sets that they use of certain weight, they might use for classical slow games, where literally you're taking a set and you're sliding the piece around, okay? You're going to play slowly. You're going to really think about your moves, and you're not going to be playing fast games. Now, however, in a situation where your games are more like blitz or rapid games, 10-minute games, 5-minute games, 3-minute games, where really you need to be moving the pieces fast, are you going to play with something like this? Are you going to play with something like this? Or, which one would you choose at that point? And you would say, I'd still probably want to choose maybe, an elaborate knight like this. But here's where it comes into, where things like this comes into consideration. This is a pretty heavy knight. So you're picking up the knight. It's not like you're going to get fatigued picking up the knight and placing it. This was an even heavier knight. This knight's very, very light. And then this one's light too. However, it's the ergonomics of the set that makes the Queen's Gambit inspired chess set nice. because yes, it looks crude. However, when you pick it up, the way that it's made is that you pick it up like this, okay? You pick it up on the back side, it's very, very flat. So there's no big mane on the back of it like this one. There's no jaw muscles or anything like that. It's very flat. It's a very flat cut knight. And it may look not so interesting. However, when you hold this in hand, when you pick it up like this, you pick it up and you exchange it, okay? It feels right in the hand, okay? So you pick it up, let's say you're taking the other person's knight, pick it up and take it. So you think I would be able to do that with the Modena chess set? You know, yeah, probably, but it's a smaller set. It feels good. You're playing fast, and when you're playing a blitz game, like 3-minute game, you're gonna be playing fast. These pieces might get knocked into each other. Okay, think about that. You're exchanging pieces. You need a set that's gonna work fast for you. If it's an elaborate, expensive set, maybe it's not gonna be as nice. You get something like this, it's going to get messed up with the other knight, and you're taking a knight, you know, it's not going to feel as right, you know. Here's the knight to the Paulsen. Just a regular, overall a regular knight. We've seen this multiple times before. The regular shape. And then we have the much smaller knight to the Library Grandmaster set. A much more slender. Like a little tiny one. And then we have the Queen's Gambit inspired one, which has a completely different shape overall. If you see here, and I'll show these pieces up closer a little bit, but you have a very symmetrical just cut going from a very divergent to a kind of a straight line. So starting from about this high up, everything's very, very straight. Just kind of a very balanced cut overall. You look at the back of this particular knight, it's really easy to grab it. It's really, really just easy to grab it. It feels really good in the hand because there's nothing getting in the way. There's not that this one in particular would be difficult to grab. You just grab it, but when you're grabbing a knight, you're grabbing by like the muscles here or like this part here. It just depends. But you're still having all these differences. Same here. You know, you're grabbing it somehow. But this one's just so much easier to grab. It's just there's no questioning where to grab it. Just grab it like this. It feels good. And when something's like this easy to grab, you're less likely to have it fall out of your hand. You know, you just grab it and put it where you need to. You're a lot less likely to have it fall. And if it does fall, because it's so crudely made, I don't think it's going to really break or anything. The only parts that could potentially break off are the very top ears, and those are made pretty thick overall too. So not a whole lot of detail in these. You know, I'm always talking to you guys about the detail of the knights, but these, as you could see, pretty standard looking knights. Okay, they feel very smooth, but the cuts, as you could see, are very blunt. The eye looks like it's been stamped out, and the mane is just absolutely very crude. But because you don't have that mane on the back, like I said before, it's easier to grab it. It's easier to just, it feels better in the hand. The mouth is also just like a straight line, no teeth. 2 little holes for the nostrils, and those pointy ears. These knights, the base and the knight doesn't separate like the Modena set. And if we look back and we look, for example, at the pawns too, I know you guys can't see it as good as I am seeing it right here, but yeah, like if you look at the pawns, And you see that the pawn to the Library Grandmaster chess set's so small, it's so small that if you're playing a quick game with it, you know, first of all, it's a lot more, it's very light. It's too light in my opinion, but you might knock it over, you know? It's just, there's nothing to grab onto. The Paulsen set's heavy. You can move with it pretty quick, but likely with this Queen's Gambit, the pawn is not as big, but they made the pawn big enough for you to be able to grab it quick and go. It's a set that's made to move fast, okay? It's a set where you can play with this without looking at the pieces. So you got your knight, okay? It's got a nice grasp to it, okay? It's got a nice grasp. You know, you take, you go, you go, you go, you go. So in a situation where you need a set that's going to be ergonomic and, you know, you pick it up and move, I feel like this might be a winner, you know, because when you're playing blitz games, you need a fast set. And you guys can let me know in the comments below what you think about this idea. So at first, when I looked at it at the set initially, I thought, this really this. But then, you know, the more that I looked at it, I thought to myself, there's something to it. You know, they don't just make a knight like this just to save money. They make a knight like this so that it's ergonomic, so that you can grab it and it feels right in the hand. Like because of the way that the head is the same width as the rest of the body and it only like diverges a little bit towards the base, it gives a perfect amount of grasp. Here, you're grasping on by the jaw muscles. Here, you don't even know what you're supposed to be grabbing the knight on, like maybe like this. This knight for the Library Grandmaster is just way too small, in my opinion. It's too small. It's still playable, but it's just too small. But this one, perfect. See? It's just, no matter, I mean, as long as you grab it, you can move it. You know? So I feel like this is not a bad set overall. If we look at the queens, we kind of see the same thing. The queens don't really have a lot of refinement on top, but yet they're not too small. They're not too big. They don't weigh a lot, because when a set weighs too much, not that it's hard to pick up. I mean, I'm not saying that it's going to be hard, but it feels like it's going to be a little bit harder to pick up. Whereas this is a little bit lighter, so, you know, you can move with it a little bit quicker. So it's something to take into account, okay? The kings here, likewise, yeah, you might say that the top looks very crude, very unrefined, and just big, but it's durable. Okay, it's durable. You got the king that moves, you know, and it plays the game nicely. Okay. If we look at the bishops, this is a prime example of where the bishop here, and we compare that to, let's say we take all the different bishops that we have for the different sets. So look at these bishops, for example. If we take a look at the bishop to the Library Grandmaster chess set, it's small. So where are you going to be grabbing the bishop? Usually by the top, right here, by the very top portion. They intentionally made the top here bigger so that, you know, you can grab onto the top quick, you know, and go where you need to go, okay? It's made bigger so that it's easier to grab on, less likely to break. There's none of these refined features. So it doesn't, you know, but it plays nice, okay? If we take a look at the rooks here, you know, you got the biggest rook from the Modena chess set, then you got the smaller rook for the Paulsen, and then you have the Queen's Gambit and the Library Grandmaster. The Library Grandmaster is actually not too bad. The Queen's Gambit feels nice. It feels nice. I feel like the entire set is made so that in mind, so that you're going to be playing fast games, okay? And so that it's not, you know, it's not going to fall out because it's too small or too brittle or anything like that. It just works. These bigger knights, they just feel heavier. They feel heavier to the point where you'd rather slide them as opposed to pick them up and put them. When you're sliding, that's fine too, but the bigger sets, you're definitely more likely to want to just slide them. Whereas these, you can just you know, you can just work with them like that, okay? So, you know, in conclusion, if you look at it online and you're basing your determination strictly on the pictures online and you're thinking, doesn't look very nice, you also have to take into account like the ergonomics of the set. You know, how heavy is it? How big is the diameter? If you have a chess set with the very big diameter pieces, you can only play on bigger chessboards. So the Modena one, they recommend a 2.5. The Paulsen one, they do recommend a 2.5, but you can easily play on a 2.25 board, whereas the Queen's Gambit inspired one's going to be that much smaller, and you can play on a smaller board. You can play on a 2-inch board. You could probably even fit this in on a 1.75, okay? But I will also show you guys what these sets look like on different boards, because that's going to be important to see. As you could see here, this is the Queen's Gambit inspired chess set on the walnut and maple square board. And we can see that both the natural boxwood kind of has a blend too with the light squares, as well as the dark pieces actually blend in pretty noticeably. As you could tell, if we put these on the side, that the blending is almost quite a lot. It's not that it makes these pieces like to the point where you can't really see them on the board anymore, but it's still something that you guys would want to take into account. If you're looking for the perfect combination as far as like how the pieces will stand out, you may definitely take into account what type of board you're going to be getting. Don't get a board that will completely match the pieces, okay? If we compare these to, you know, the Paulsen set, obviously the Paulsen will not be blending in just because the pieces are so strikingly black, you know. The antique boxwood actually does not blend in either, so you could see that there's a lot more contrast of this particular set. This board is the walnut and maple folding board that I have done a video on previously. I think that there's still a blend. So if you're gonna have the golden rosewood color or acacia wood color, you might want to pick a board that's gonna be a little bit different in color, just because if you have a walnut board, the walnut blends in. It seems like the walnut blends in quite a lot with the golden rosewood or acacia. So it's something to take into consideration. This here is an example of a slightly smaller board. This is the board that came with the Library Grandmaster chess set. This is where we can see that because of that compact base of the pieces, that we don't really have too much trouble as far as the room, and you could be playing this particular set on even a smaller board like this. So you may not necessarily strive to get the biggest board possible. This is a 1.75 inch square board, and it looks like you still are able to play nicely on this board. Because the squares have a little bit of a red tint to them, it doesn't blend in as much as the pieces blend in with the maple. Okay, so we can see here it's a little bit better overall. I would probably not buy that small of a board for these pieces. I would still strive to get at least like a 2-inch square board for these particular pieces. Now here's the biggest board I have. This is the 2.5 inch. And the 2.5 inch is just because of the way that it has that sort of a matte finish, and because the wood is veneer and it has just a different feel overall than the pieces. This is where most of the pieces that you play on this will pretty much none of the pieces will blend, just because the wood here is very like grainy, like it has a grain, and the board doesn't. So it just looks different. It almost kind of, just because of the quality of this particular finish here, it will not blend with any of the pieces that you play on here, just because the way that it reflects differently than the pieces. So I don't think that I would have any pieces that would blend in with this particular board, period. And then you could see this is how this particular set would look this particular wood. It does have a little bit of a blending to it, but not as much. You know, in comparison, this would be the, here we go. This would be how the Modena set would look as far as the dark pieces, and this is how the Paulsen. Obviously, the Paulsen, being that it's so stark black, would probably look most contrasty with any board out there. But just wanted you guys to get an idea about, you know, different pieces and different boards and how this particular set would look. They may recommend a certain size board. I would probably say shoot for at least a 2-inch square board with this particular set. I feel like it doesn't look bad at all on a 2.5 if you end up having a 2.5. I wouldn't necessarily know. I don't have a bigger board than a 2.5. 2.5 is the biggest one I have. I know there are boards with like a 3-inch square. I feel overall that this particular set would be equally nice to play on a big board like this, or on a smaller board like a 2.25 or even a 2.0 probably. As I mentioned before, the nice thing about this particular set is because it's not as refined as some of the other sets, you know, paying attention to how the finial is on the king, and the finial here doesn't come out, it just stays in, that I would not be afraid of throwing this particular set in a chess bag and just go to tournaments with it, because I feel like the way it's made and the way like that the knight is made, none of the details are gonna scrape off if you throw this in a bag with, you know, just let them be jumbled up, you know. And overall, it feels good in hand, very ergonomic. It's not super light to where it would be knocked over easily, but at the same time, it's heavy enough to play a decent rapid or blitz game. Thanks again for watching. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, go ahead and subscribe, and that way you'll be able to stay tuned for any future chess content. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments below what you think about this particular set. Everybody have a safe weekend, and I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.